I don't want an enough life. I want an expansive life. But that's actually what enough brings us, that when we're in this place where we're not pitched forward, fighting for more, that I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just going in for the job interview. I'm at ease. I'm asking good questions because I'm not fearful of not getting hired.
Welcome to Magic in the Moment, Mindfulness in Real Time. My name is Clayton Platt, and I'll be your host for this podcast journey. And for many people, practicing mindfulness has very little to do with sitting on a cushion, lighting incense, or even focusing on their breath. Just paying attention to what they're doing at any moment. And doing this intentionally can create that same magic. Our time together is intended to share how mindfulness plays out in everyday life for our guests. And before we begin, here's a word from our sponsor, Meditation for Leadership. We all feel it, the pressure to keep up, to perform, to push through. But lasting success doesn't come from speeding up. It comes from slowing down, leaning in, and creating the space to lead from within. That space is where we shift from autopilot to intention, building mindful habits that strengthen focus and calm. It's where we stay connected to our values and purpose, choosing to respond instead of react. It's where we unlock our potential to positively shape our own lives and empower others to grow and thrive. That's the work of Meditation for Leadership. If you're ready to create the space for sustainable success, visit meditationforleadership.org. Hi, this is Clayton Platt, and welcome to Magic in the Moment, Mindfulness in Real Time. And today, I am really pleased to welcome Spencer Sherman. Spencer occupies this fascinating space where mindfulness meets money. Two things that we're often told shouldn't mix, but absolutely must. As a meditation teacher, financial advisor, and founding CEO of Abacus Wealth Partners, he spent decades helping people discover that the relationship with money is really a relationship with themselves. What strikes me most about Spencer's work is his central question: what if enough is already here? In a culture that's always chasing more, that's not just radical, that's revolutionary. And every time I read his writing, whether it's about the 5 money meditations inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh or his cure for what he calls money madness, I find myself examining, I mean this, my own hidden beliefs about wealth, scarcity, and what it really means to have enough. So Spencer, welcome to Magic in the Moment.
Love it. So happy to be here, Clayton.
Well, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your patience as we've gotten all this together.
Wow.
As I was prepping for our time together today, I was reminded about a story that's attributed to Jack Bogle, a commencement speech at Georgetown. Whether or not he actually told this story, or whether it was, we know that Kurt Vonnegut told the story. Jack Bogle wrote a book about enough. So that may be one of the ties here, but here's the story. The story was that Joseph Heller was at a big party out in the Hamptons that was hosted by a billionaire. And someone noted that the host made more money in a day that Heller would ever make from his seminal work, Catch-22. And Heller replied to that, but I have something that he'll never have. Enough. And Jack Bogle, founder of Vanguard, he made that one of his principal things in his later years. But both of you center on this word. And I'd love to know from your standpoint, sort of how you came across this theme and how it's basically inspiring your work right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I grew up with a sense of wanting more, which as we know is pervasive, right? I mean, it's even the billionaires want more. I just kept wanting more. But I had this sense, Clayton, that if I came into money, or when I started working, when I became a financial advisor, when I started working with wealthy people, they would experience and let me know that they had enough. But I saw firsthand they didn't.
Mm.
And the result of that not having enough is this sense of striving, of overreaching, of grasping. And I think that the sports world really has taught me something, that when I watch basketball players, they are so at ease when they come on the court. They're not striving to win the game, because if they were striving and all clenched up, they wouldn't play as well. And we know this about ourselves, that when we're in a relaxed state, when our nervous systems are calmer, we often just do better in life. So this enough principle, I mean, the word can be problematic for some of us, because the word itself sounds boring. Like, I don't want an enough life. I want an expansive life. But that's actually what enough brings us, that when we're in this place where we're not pitched forward, fighting for more, that I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just going in for the job interview. I'm at ease. I'm asking good questions because I'm not fearful of not getting hired. It's that person is going to more likely receive the job offer than the person who says, I desperately need this job. Please hire me. That kind of energy, that kind of tightness that we tend to bring to so many areas of our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, another example is I was out running a year ago, and my knee starts to hurt me. And the first thought is, well, maybe this is enough running for today. But no, the knee shouldn't be hurting. I've only been running for 10 minutes and I keep going, and then finally I stop and say, no, it's enough for today. And that ability to recognize that enough in that moment probably saved my knee. So there's so many, I mean, certainly in the financial world, what I have witnessed with myself and my clients is that when we get to that place of enoughness, there's peace and joy in the mind. We use our money in much wiser ways. We're no longer hoarding it. I mean, I've worked with people who have tens of millions of dollars, but they can't enjoy it. They can't spend it. They can't be generous with it because it's not enough. They follow the message that John D. Rockefeller put out in 1916, the world's first billionaire, when a journalist asked him how much is enough, and he said a little bit more. And I give him the benefit of the doubt. Clayton, I say that he was a spiritual teacher, and he was trying to tell us, if you think for a moment that you're going to get to enough by accumulating more money, more party invitations, more muscles, more of anything, more house, more vacation experiences, or even more spiritual growth, you're deluding yourself. It's not going to happen, because the reason it's not going to happen is because you're setting up the mind. You're training this mind, and this mind is very trainable. It's very impressionable. We've been training it for decades. You're training your mind to be future oriented, and a mind that's future oriented, and you're also training a mind to cultivate this sense of scarcity, because you're often saying it's not enough, not enough. I don't have enough friends. I don't have enough house. I don't have enough time. I'm out of everything. A mind trained that way can never actually rest in this place of enough. So what's great about this moment right now, as we're speaking, Clayton, is that everyone who's listening has an opportunity to not do this after the podcast, but right now, in this moment, is the moment to declare that you have enough, you do enough, that you are enough. And why do we give ourselves permission? Because no one gets there by the doing one more thing. By the, oh, this sounds great, what Clayton and Spencer is saying. After this program, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then I'll be there. No, you're training your mind in the opposite direction. It's declaring it right now, right in this moment. And you have permission, because no one else most of us don't get there, even the billionaires. So if they're not getting there, you can get there. You can get there right in this moment.
That resonates so deeply on so many
Okay.
different levels. And
And you feel everything settle in yourself. Like people can just, close their eyes for a moment and just imagine, okay, what if I have enough? What if I do enough? What happens to the body and the mind, the quality of the mind when you rest in a place of enoughness, knowing that I'm using that word enough in a very expansive way, that when you're in that place of enoughness, you're it includes all your outrageous goals, but you're no longer clinging to them like, I want to become a billionaire. I want to create global peace. That's great, but it's coming from an enough mindset rather than a scarcity mindset.
yeah,
And and you're
yeah.
more like create what you want so you
And
can have it all.
yep, I was thinking about this and about that from a neuroscience standpoint, right?
Mm,
Um, that sense of enough, one of the reasons it provides that element of peace is that it's relaxing your nervous system, right? And when 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 we're in that sense of scarcity, when we're grasping and clinging, grasping, striving, our nervous system is on threat mode. And when it's on threat mode, we don't think clearly, right? We are
yeah.
we're scared. We're going into fight and flight. So the decision making is usually flawed and driven by that sense of, well, if it's scarcity, then it's fear or it's anger or any number of emotions that are not playing into clarity. And so that beautiful, and you mentioned the athlete and watching the basketball player coming on the court and the
Yeah.
basketball player shooting the fouls at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And the guy who's relaxed, I think it's Steph Curry, you know, he's sitting there with his mouth guard half out of his mouth, and he's done this a billion times, and he's not thinking at that time, if I miss this, we lose. He's going, hey, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, I've done this. I've done this. I've done this. And
Yeah.
that enoughness is liberating. That's the word that keeps coming to me. It's liberating because so much can happen and good things continue to flow to you if you're like, okay, nothing else changed right now. The way I am in this moment, it's all good.
Yeah. 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 That's the thing, is to see enough as sort of this springboard
Mhm.
to liberation, as you say, to anything as possible in your life. So don't get hung up on the word, because I agree. The word itself can sound like, I don't think I want an enough life. I want an abundant life. Well, abundance will come from resting in this place of sensing your enoughness, your fullness is another way of saying it, that your full presence, that you're when you're at work, you're not saying, oh, I'm less than other people. You're not in that comparing mind,
Mhm.
judging yourself. Of course, we perform better when we're in that place of fullness, of enoughness. We do better with our finances. We do better with our friends, with our spouse. You know, sort of everything gets elevated when we're in that enough mindset. I mean, it's a beautiful mindset. I mean, there's a word, if I can throw out another word that's very closely related to enough. I call it the sibling of enough. It's kind of like a little bit of a Buddhist term, but it's an English word, is equanimity.
Mhm.
That we're in this kind of equanimous place. That equanimity is a very high state of being from a Buddhist perspective. It's the seventh of seven awakening factors. So it's the last one. It's this place where, and you sort of said it, that we're okay with ourselves as we are. I mean, to me, that's a beautiful definition of enlightenment. You're okay with yourself as you are, which doesn't mean that you're just going to hammock the rest of your life, but you're not at war with what's happening. You're at ease with yourself. And from that, you're going to take the best care of yourself. You're going to do what's best for you, but you're not gripping it. You're not clenched. And I've got to change. I got to get more muscles. yeah, you might very well work out at the gym every day, but it's coming from a different energy. You're already enough.
Loving it really comes from a place of self-compassion, loving yourself. And it's like, if you care enough about yourself, right, and to get to that place of caring about yourself, you have to be accepting, right?
Yes.
Because if you're not accepting where you are, then you're not happy and you're not being self-compassionate and you're not loving yourself and you're beating yourself up, and very few good things flow out of
That's
that.
right. That's right. When you said the word comparing, it triggered the sense of like enough of it's we can't imagine this. I think when I was a kid, I just couldn't imagine it. I grew up in a 6-story apartment building in Queens, New York. I couldn't imagine the possibility that if I lived in a house one day, that I would ever say, I want that other house. Because a house to me represented like absolute wealth. Like that was it. But we actually do that, and there's a term for it that, Laurie Santos at Yale University coined, which is this hedonic treadmill that we're on, that as soon as we get to first class in any regard, but she used the example of the airline, we get to first class, after a few flights, we're saying to ourselves, that other airline has a better first class, or, I should be flying privately. It doesn't end. We keep looking for another level. That's the other danger of living the life the other way, is that it's a very slippery slope of going for more because it doesn't end.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's always another level, right? It's, professionally, if you're comparing yourself to others, if you're not enough with yourself as an attorney, a doctor, a business person, there's always going to be somebody who you say, wow, I thought I was enough, but look at this guy. Yeah.
I was thinking about this, the hedonic treadmill, and I saw a cartoon one time, and there was a hamster, standing on the side of a treadmill, or the wheel, and he looked over and he goes, "No, I just got back from retreat."
Mm,
Like,
mm,
well, I don't need that.
yeah.
So I'm fascinated, Spencer.
Yeah.
You described growing up in Queens in that,
Yes.
right? So part of me just was, I just need to. So how did you get from Queens to where we are now, and what sparked your investigation of mindfulness? How did that weave into your life? And
Yeah.
then, how did it come into being such an influence on your work as a money manager?
Yeah. Well, it certainly wasn't so much from my parents. I mean, they had no interest or awareness of mindfulness or meditation. I think it started where I was noticing that I was doing okay in high school, but I was having some issues focusing. And I went to the library one day and I asked the librarian for help. And I ended up finding this book on developing I don't even think the book mentioned the word meditation, but it said I think it was called like alpha brainwaves or something like that. I should find the book, but it offered these exercises to do to put yourself in a sort of more of an alpha state. And she loved that. I loved the feeling of being in this alpha state. And so I think that was, and the results were my grades started getting much better. And then when I got to college, there was a course offered on meditation that I ended up taking. And I noticed how that just had a big influence on my life. And, so for so long, I saw like the money world was separate from the mindfulness world. But I see now that they're so intertwined, that if you don't have mindfulness, you're going to have a lot of reactivity. And reactivity doesn't go well with success in the financial world, right? Um, so yeah, it's a funny combination on the first glance, right? Why is this guy interested in mindfulness and money? But they actually do very much go together.
Well, you are aware of the fact, because in a prior conversation I mentioned it to you, that my introduction to mindfulness came through a mutual friend of ours, and saying friend is not a strong enough term, but I was in the money management business,
Yeah.
and I was introduced to the book, 7 Stages of Money Maturity by George Kinder. I went, whoa, this is interesting. I went to a 2-day workshop and I was like, OMG. It's like, and I will share with you that actually it was a partner of mine at Smith Barney who said, dude, you have massive hangups about money. Here you
Mm,
are managing, millions of dollars for people in, Westchester,
mm,
New York and Fairfield County, Connecticut. And you've got hangups. You got to deal with that. So he introduced me to the book and then to George in the workshop, and it was life changing. And
mm.
I, I started meditating as a result of the workshop, but my own journey around how I saw money and its influence on me was dramatic. And literally, it drove me out of the business because what I realized was I wasn't filled. I was actually pretty good at it. And
Yeah.
I was making really good money, but there was a fulfillment missing for me. And it directed me into another, career, into fundraising, for example, not for profit. But that that introduction was life changing for me. And um, I want to tip my hat to George, but through George, I have my introduction to you. So that's another reason why I love the man.
Yes, he's amazing. Yeah, yeah. He's amazing what he's brought to the world, and certainly to the financial advisor community. Yeah.
Yeah. So going further then in your work, um, if you can sort of bring me more about what started the whole process of digging deeper into the concept of enough, and how do you specifically bring that into work with clients, and potentially where have you found you've caught yourself, because we are all human,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. So one thing is I like with clients having sort of two accounts for them. And in one account is their enough money. Like, this is the amount of money that you need to thrive and pay your bills. Now, this is for probably somewhat wealthier people. Some people might just have that and don't have much left over, but there's many who have enough so that they can have this thriving account and they can see, okay, so I need, let's say, call it, 3 million, $5 million to thrive for my living expenses, if I stop working, when I retire. But then all the other money I can see is separated out, and that's surplus. And that's been very helpful for people because otherwise it all gets mixed together. And there's a set, again, you get on the hedonic treadmill. As soon as you get to 3 million, you want 5. And then when you get 5, 10 sounds so much better. And then you meet someone who has 20 and you're like, wow, 20 would be amazing. Or you start creating more fear in your mind. Well, what if this happens? What if, somebody once said to me, what happens if I need to buy an organ, and organs cost like $3 or $5 million or something like that? So you can always create scenarios where you need more. So clients have really benefited from seeing that segregation of their money and knowing, like, okay, this is the amount, I can't touch this money except for living expenses. But then all this extra I could use for generosity, I could towards my family, towards nonprofits or whatever. That has been very helpful in sort of helping them get to that this is your enough money, or, and then everything else is surplus. To really see it has helped. And then, I think you asked about specific examples. What's coming up is one thing, that I really noticed about myself is whenever they ask how I am, I've tended to lead a very busy life. I say I'm swamped. And
Mm.
I start feeling the scarcity that's underneath that comment, that I'm swamped. There's a feeling of not enough. That's why, that I'm so swamped. I don't have enough time. I don't
Mm.
have enough energy, or I'm out of, I'm out of resources. I'm so swamped. And so I started saying to people that people ask me, friends ask me, how are you? I said, feeling spacious, feeling like I have enough. And it kind of shocks them. I think because they're used to me saying I'm swamped, but it also is sending a whole different message to my brain and my body. And it feels good. In the beginning, it felt like I was a little bit of an imposter, but eventually it feels very natural, and it's forced me so that I wouldn't be an imposter. I had to start creating more space in my calendar. I just had to. I had to say, I've done enough at work. It's time to leave. I've done enough at home. It's because the mind is like one more thing, one more on the to-do list, right?
You mentioned the body.
Yeah.
And to me, this is an area, as people who come to this podcast are typically people with curiosity, interest, and not necessarily people who've gone on a lot of retreats, maybe haven't meditated ever, right? But when they start hearing about listening to their body, or maybe the brain, we've got three brains the three minds, or three brains in the mind, in the heart, in the gut, whatever, but where the messages arise, where those feelings arise that get, connected with thoughts. To me, this is an interesting subject that can spark some more curiosity to people to lean into mindfulness. Give me your thoughts on that, if you would. How I just
Yeah.
show money issues
On
in the
how thoughts are impacting the body. And yeah, how those thoughts sort of impact our reactivity in our lives. Yeah. So, I mean, when we're talking about enough, we mentioned this future orientation. When we don't have enough, we tend to be future oriented. And as soon as we put ourselves in that future mind frame, and you can even imagine it now, you can say, like, because we often have that phrase in our lives, right? I'm not the only one that says to myself, when blank happens, then I'll be okay. When my kids become independent, you know, when when I retire, when I get to X dollars in my brokerage accounts, then I'll be okay, or then I will have arrived, then I'll have enough. That there's a sense of anxiety underneath that sentence, that if sentence. And that anxiety, starts to impact us and create this unnecessary reactivity within us. And we're conditioning ourselves to be more reactive by allowing ourselves to create these future scenarios of when we'll be okay. And we're also fighting the truth, because we know that every time in the past we've done that, it's never happened. So we're promising ourselves something very, very, very unlikely to come to be, right? Because there'll be another thing, right? And we've all done that. Like, when this happens, when I get to the weekend, then I can relax. What about relaxing right now? And that's, I think, the essence of what you're saying and the essence of mindfulness practice is to create this sense of ease within us right in this moment, regardless of the conditions, to find contentment right here. Because that's going to be the most potent training for this mind, this body, and this heart. That's going to, think about the impact. I mean, this is just like a machine here. And how do we take the best care of this machine? Is we don't want to add stress to it. We don't want to add reactivity to it. So can we find this way of right in this moment, right now, finding a way to be at ease with conditions as they are? That, okay, there's knee pain, there's this going on, my kid didn't call me back, this client didn't call me back. And yet right now, there's a sense of enoughness within. And it's not, I don't know why these people didn't call me back, or why the weather isn't nice today. So I can only take care of what's here. So this practice in mindfulness of finding what's below, finding the stillness below the turbulent surface of our minds, and keep coming back to that because it's right here in the body that we can access it, does so much to heal us in the moment, but it also, again, trains that brain to be a new brain so that the next time someone doesn't call us back, we're less reactive. And having less reactivity in our lives, I mean, we can do a whole show just on that. I mean, that you can say, in some ways, you can say for several of these ideas, but for the idea of like less reactivity, like who wouldn't want that? Who hasn't had a moment in their life that they regret because they were overreactive? They did something with their money, or they said something to a friend impulsively, or they, reacted to the knee pain by just ignoring it. That reactivity does not serve us. Well, except for one instance, it does serve us when our lives are actually threatened. So when you have an oncoming car, I want everyone on this podcast to be reactive. When a car's coming at you, jump out of the way. That's when you're reactive. So it does serve us, but unfortunately, we've taken this ability to be reactive and we're now applying it to countless situations where our life is not literally on the line, but we feel as if our life is on the line.
I want to tip my hat. An earlier conversation I had was with Dr. Mitchell Green, who wrote a book called Courage Over Confidence about mind chatter for athletes.
Mm.
And he mentioned the same thing you did, which is there is a time when we should listen to our minds. And that is we come to the street and there's traffic going by and a mind goes, stay here. Okay. That's a good thing. Jump out of the way if necessary. That's the turn. But we know from again, neuroscience research, what is it? Something like 95% of the decisions made during the course of a day are made by system one that our dear friend, the late, great Daniel Kahneman talked about, the fast brain making those quick decisions, the stuff under the surface, the automatic brain. And yes, that served us well, getting us out of the savannah when we were not the fastest or the strongest of the species. But these days, it's counterproductive because so many of the decisions that need our attention are getting made by automatic. They're autonomous to us. It's like, so we need to take control of the self-driving car.
Yes,
Right?
you mentioned Daniel Kahneman, and he did a great study, which you can apply to your life right now. And his study was around fear. And what he discovered is that the more frequently you look at your phone, the more fear you're going to generate. And the way he achieved this is that he looked at people's finances, and that people who looked at their phones more often, very strong correlation with having less money. And what he determined is that he ended up seeing they actually had much more conservative portfolio allocations. They had more money in bank accounts, which, were offering 1 or 2% or something like that. So that fear from looking at their phones so often was wreaking havoc on their finances, but it also wreaks havoc, as we've been saying, on our bodies. So one thing that you can do starting today is if you can decrease the number of times you look at your phone each day, I think the average is something like 200 or something like that, get down to 50 or something, or, there's just decrease it. That is going to lower your reactivity. Every time you have that impulse, oh, maybe I should look to, let go of that. Let go of that impulse to check. And you're going to have a happier, less reactive life. So this is where we have to start. I call it these polite interventions or interruptions. Like, it's not polite to interrupt someone else, but when you're overly checking the phone or you're ruminating about something bad that might happen that is just a made up thing, interrupt that. Interrupt the pattern. that's where you get to take control of your life instead of letting the ruminating mind take control or letting your automatic tendencies of checking your phone guide your life. What about if you're in charge? Because you
I,
know that
yeah.
you would not let a friend of yours check their phone 400 times a day.
And I'm thinking that correlation that you mentioned that Danny Kahneman had brought up.
Yeah.
Um, so the conservative portfolios correlating with checking the phone, to me, and I want to make sure that I capture this right, is that the person who is checking their portfolio 85 times a day
Yeah.
is panic stricken. Therefore, they're going to go to the safest possible route. Whereas we know over the long term, if you don't need that money tomorrow, if you need it in 5 years or 7 years,
Yeah.
allowing some risk to come into play allows you the opportunity for growth. And in a way, that's patient. That's like, okay, that money is doing what it's supposed to do. It is enough today, and it will grow based on, you know, hopefully good decisions on where it's put. But in order for it to grow in a way that's going to be meaningful to me, there's risk involved. But if I'm getting panic stricken
Yeah.
every other moment about what could happen, then I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to put it into a CD or a savings account, or heaven forbid, under the pillow in a checking account. And I'm much worse off. So,
Yes. Yes. Yes, this is the whole thing is where we have to really care for these minds and these bodies. And unbeknownst to us, they're getting trained in certain ways by us having this ability to like check the phone so often. We're creating this extra reactivity that, as you're, saying, is that it's biasing, it's exaggerating the fear. We have an altered sense of reality because we're checking things so often. We have more, yeah, we have more, we have a sense that, like, for example, like the stock market is more volatile than it really is because we're looking at it so often. It's the same with, if you're checking the news every 5 minutes, you're going to have more, your sense of the volatility of the world is going to start to increase and your fear is going to start to increase. So you're setting yourself up for a much more challenging life when you do that. So these are things that we can do, like starting today or starting right now. We can just like okay to look at the news, but maybe you decide what's the right amount, what's the dosage you want of the news each day. Is it a good thing to look every 5 minutes? I mean, I've also played with Clayton, like often I'll be doing work and I'll have a thought about something like, oh, what's the capital of this country or something like that. And there can be this impulse to find out the answer on the internet, but it's a distraction. And it's also creating a mosquito brain, a more reactive mind, right? So I resist as much as I can sometimes those impulses to check the internet for things that are not critical. Right?
yeah, yeah. And getting to how we can strengthen our ability to be accepting of the moment and be present with what's going on right now without the need to find extra stimulus, to check again, scroll, to check the news, to check a bank account, to go back on Instagram, whatever it could be, right? um, Being able to identify the feelings, those impulses as they arrive, means having our attention and focus and radar on our bodies. And
Yes.
this is
Yes.
one thing when people say, so, you know, what argument would you give me uh, that I should try meditating to build a mindful presence? What's in it for me at the end of the day? And one of the first things I would say is, if you can set the intention to be quiet,
Mm.
right? And just follow your breath, feel your body, whatever, right? And notice in 5 minutes how many thoughts show up, how many feelings show up. That all of a sudden is such a teacher. It's like, oh, this is happening
Yeah.
an immense amount of time. Maybe I should be a little bit more aware of what's triggering me. And I will share with you, Spencer, that I try. I meditate every day, but it's not always 30 minutes on the cushion. I try to do that if I can. But when I sit on the cushion in silence, I may have had, I don't know, 70 thoughts, 80 thoughts. And one of the things that I laugh at myself is I have a little timer. I use an Insight timer just to track and ring the bell after 30 minutes. How many times with like 30 seconds left, I'm opening my eyes and looking over at the phone to say, I think my phone must have gone off because I didn't hear the bell.
Yeah.
I just mentioned that is that, first of all, even on the path, so to speak, I'm still subject to that, but a lot less.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot more aware of those triggers, of when
Yes.
those compulsions for me. It's like, check this, or eat this, right? And just feeling the body talking to me.
Yeah. It's beautiful to check in with the body. The body has so much intelligence, and it's not like the mind doesn't have intelligence, but we've overweighted the mind and underweighted the body. And you said earlier about this, that we looking for all this stimulus in our lives. If we can't be with, this current moment, whatever it is, if it's boring or unsatisfactory, if we feel we need to get away from that boredom every time we're bored, we're setting ourselves up for needing something more and more exciting, because we can't be with anything less than something outrageous. Well, think about what that's doing to the nervous system. That's something to play with, to feel into, these ideas are sort of best when you can feel it inside, when you know that, I turned inward, felt the boredom, felt what was beneath the boredom, and then it shifted. And I didn't need to go get an ice cream cone or whatever figured other example is of that for you. That to me is a huge win. That, we don't need that. We don't need to win the lottery every hour in our lives to have a good day.
Yeah. And I think that that awareness of what's pushing you forward, what's kind of triggering your actions is power.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to pause for 1 second. I'm about to cough, so I'm just going to put myself to one.
Sure. Sure.
And that's the beauty of editing, that we can pick that back up. It's like I normally, for some reason, I did not bring my tea or my water, so that's shame on me, but that's okay. I'm going to give myself some space for there. That tuning in to what is triggering activity or reactivity, to me, is so much power.
Yeah.
And I was telling someone recently, I'm a compulsive person, which is one of the reasons why 25 years ago I finally made a decision that I probably should not drink alcohol. So not the best, it doesn't make me the best of my personal being. And I probably made that decision a little late, but I made it and I pretty much stuck with it. So that's been a good thing. But I am still a compulsive person. And one of the things that kind of replaced that was over time, just like, oh, I love sweets. I'll have chocolate, dark chocolate, I'll have Talenti, and being able to notice all of a sudden for years, every time I finished dinner, I would eat very well during the day, healthy, right portions, not a lot of snacks. And then after dinner, there's that compulsion to get something sweet. And you were referencing that. It's like, oh, I need this, the stimulus, whatever
Yeah.
it was, right? And when I finally started paying attention to that, I went, well, wait a minute. First of all, if you pause before you complete what the compulsion is telling you to do, there's power there. And then I said, well, wait a minute. I just noticed as I slowed down and stopped doing that so frequently that I actually lost a little weight. I wasn't exercising more. I wasn't
Mm.
changing my diet otherwise, but there was unnecessarily calories and probably sugar and inflammation, but whatever. I started getting healthier. So then when that pulse, that moment would occur, and I was like, well, wait a minute. I have a choice here.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
the old way was I would satisfy the sweet tooth. And the new way is I'm going to look at that and go, I kind of like this new version of myself. I think I'll stick to that.
Beautiful. Wow. That's powerful. Yeah. It takes some courage, and it takes this ability to tune into the body and to slow down for a moment, and pay attention. And that serves us in countless ways. I mean, one of the things I tell the people in the money world is, we also have, we have reactivity around food, and then around money. And it's so easy to spend today with the online world, is to wait 3 to 5 days before you buy something after you discover you want it. And I get so much great feedback on that, like that, that 3-day rule, like just wait 3 days, see if you, and some people say they forgot about the item.
Mm.
Days.
Yeah.
You know
I
what?
love it.
I mean, I was going to buy a kayak once. I got so passionate I started researching them. And then I did, wait a second, let me just wait a week and see if I still want it. And in that week, so much changed in my life. Had no need for a kayak.
So let me ask you this. With your clients or people who follow you around your teaching around money and mindfulness and that intersection, uh, what what sort of guidance would you give people uh, to sort of begin that exploration for themselves about um, bringing that tool into their lives on a more daily basis? What sort of things, for example, or I know that you lead retreats, which I think is fabulous, and I highly recommend people. We will have a link to you and your work in the show notes, but uh, tell me a little bit about sort of what goes on at a Spencer Sherman led retreat around money.
Yeah, well, the retreats I lead these 48-hour retreats. They're 2-night retreats, and we don't focus so much on money.
Mhm.
We focus more on our reactivity in our personal lives, our work lives, and how to decrease that. And certainly around money, there's a lot of reactivity. And so I offer these very short meditations, and we also we do the retreat has several components. There's a hike that we do. There's a walk to the ocean that we do. So it gets a lot of our senses involved. There's what's called a sound bath on that retreat, but we also do these very short, potent meditations to simmer that reactivity, so that the next time we get that a trigger presents itself to us, we're able to find that pause for a nanosecond. We don't immediately react. And from that, not only are we lowering our blood pressure, not only we calming our nervous system down, but we also tend to make a better decision, because in a reactive moment, we don't know this, but in that in reactivity, we're reactive because we feel like our life is threatened. So we're not going to usually have our best response when we're reactive like that. When someone, um, you know, uh, writes an email to us and we read it quickly, and I've done this, probably all done, and we start firing back an email, a reactive email. Usually it's not our wisest words. Right? So that learning how to pause and starting to get that into the body. And then it's easy and it's not easy, I could say. I mean, it's such a simple practice of just turning to the body and feeling what's below the reactivity. It doesn't take long. I think that's the thing I should say, is that we've been training our minds and bodies for decades. And I mean, John Kabat-Zinn has found that after 8 weeks, you can really, I think even in 2 days, people tell me that their reactivity is much less. And even if they never continue with any practices, they have this awareness and oh, look what's happening. I'm like getting all flustered and paranoid and fearful about, the market's going down, or my friend not calling me back. And I can just tune in and feel for a moment. Just in one little moment of feeling instead of thinking, that sort of balances out the equation so well.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's reminiscent of Viktor Frankl's
Yeah.
right between the stimulus and the response, and in that is our ability to pause and then to choose. And
Yeah.
and when it takes me back again, that thought of from that the neuroscience behind making the reactive decisions based on threat, right? And one of the things in my study of neuroscience that blew my mind
Mm.
was that whether you're threatened physically or virtually, right? So a social threat and a physical threat
Yeah.
manifest themselves in the same part of the brain.
Yes.
The
Yes.
brain doesn't distinguish between the gun to your head or someone unfriending you on Facebook.
That's
Right?
interesting. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. And so our ability to go, wait a minute, as you say, that pause. It's like, I'm going to make this. I'm not going to pull the trigger on this purchase for 3 days. I'm going to, before I respond to an email or a text that pissed me off, I'm going to wait 24 hours.
Yeah. 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 You can do it with everything. That's a great idea. Again, don't do it with the oncoming car. Don't pause there, jump out of the way. But with kind of all the emotional stuff in our lives, that's the time to pause. Your teenage son or daughter says something to you. If you don't know what to say back, just pause. Just pause. Come back in an hour or two. Recognize that they were reactive when they said what they did. And reactivity against reactivity just creates more reactivity. So you want to come back with wisdom. And this is true with, our children, with our coworkers, with our friends, with our family members. There's no need to add spice when somebody starts out with spice.
Right. And this is something that took me a long time to learn. And I think I'm still occasionally struggling with it, but a lot less, is the need to be right.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
with kids, oh my God, it's, I would say, looking back at my life, probably my worst moments as a father were when I was digging my heels into the ground and putting the line in the sand and I have to listen because I know it. And it's like, really? Well, maybe I was right. Maybe I wasn't. But at the end of the day, what did I really want?
Yeah.
What was more important to me was that relationship. And in that moment, I lost sight of it.
Yeah.
Right? As you said, that reactivity clouded what I really wanted. What I really
Yes.
wanted was peace. What I really wanted was connection. What I really wanted was love. And what I got was some distance that I didn't ask for.
Yeah. Yeah. That was so well said, because there's so much gold we can go for, and why settle for anything less than that? And when we're less reactive, our best selves come forward, our wisest selves come forward. So, this is why I've made this part of my life mission, is to create a less reactive being here. I was waiting for my It was one last thing. I was waiting for a refrigerator to arrive with the delivery, and of course, they're always late. And I'm saying to myself, "This is stressful." I was sort of pointing to the delivery people, this whole thing in my mind, and then I realized, no, this isn't stressful. This is stressful. This body, this being is stressful. The reactivity starts here. It's not out there.
Yeah.
And that's powerful. If it starts here, then we can do something about it. And then we can live less reactive, happy, content lives, regardless of the weather. Regardless of the weather, with our finances, with our families, with our friends, with our coworkers. Yeah. So this has been great, Clayton.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. It has been, again, long overdue. But I think that, in the words of somebody, if it's worth doing, it's worth waiting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am very grateful not only for your time with me today, which again has been very stimulating, and I'm glad for anybody who tunes in that they've been able to benefit from your wisdom. But also, I just want to tip my hat because the work you're doing is much needed. The
Yeah.
messaging is clear and beneficial and inspiring. And I would like as many people as possible to check out your work, follow you. If they have an opportunity to attend one of your retreats, to do so. I think that's a good motivation for me to get to the West Coast. But in the meantime, I just wish you all the best. And hey, today was enough, but that doesn't mean that there isn't more to come.
Yes. Yes. That's a great note to land on. Thank you so much, Clayton.
Hey, thanks for listening. I want to give a big shout out to John Gehring of Story Trust Media for his expert editing and wonderful production guidance. I also am deeply grateful for the ongoing support I receive from Meditation for Leadership and their sponsorship. So that's all for now. Until next time, this is Clayton Platt saying, watch for those moments of magic when mindfulness shows up in real time in your life.